Welcome to a Week 2 edition of X's and Omar, alongside Dolphins columnist Omar Kelly. I'm CBS 12 Sports Director Matt Lincoln, and man, do we have a huge show for you today because of not only the fact that it is Patriots Week at Foxborough, but also a Week 1 game in Seattle that I think Dolphins fans are not going to forget really through this entire season, as Doug Baldwin caught a 2-yard touchdown pass with 30 seconds left to give them a 12-10 win and a tough loss for the Dolphins.
Should have took the field goal. 4th and inches at the 17. This will eat at me for the rest of the season because you basically squandered an opportunity to pull off the biggest upset in Week 1 because you were a confident coach, little bit misguided about who your team was, and you said, we're going for it on 4th and inches. They stuff you. You don't kick the field goal instead of taking the 3 points that would have sealed the victory for you. My issue, because you always take the points on the road, especially against a team with playing great defense. But there were other miscues, the Kenny Stills drop of
that's pretty good. We made it 45 seconds before we reached the Kenny Stills drop.
Of an easy 71-yard touchdown, but obviously it's not that easy when you're trying to catch an overhead ball and your body's a little. I'm not making excuses for him because the season is about fresh out of excuses. You also had a field goal blocked in the second half of the game. So you squandered 13 points. 13 points was right there for you. You dropped it. And ultimately you lost to the Seahawks 12-10, and you beat yourself. Now the question is, how many games this season are the Miami Dolphins going to beat themselves, especially against good opponents?
Well, that was a huge game. What do you think they learned about themselves in that game?
I think that they learned that they're probably a little bit better of a team than a lot of people are healthy. They're probably a little bit better of a team than a lot of people are giving them credit for. They ran the ball better in the first half than I'd seen them do in the exhibition season. Then they abandoned it, which is the Dolphins' way. Adam Gase is supposed to change that. I think it showed us that you're a little bit talent-starved from a playmaking standpoint on offense. No receivers got the job done for Ryan Tannehill. No tight ends got the job done. Third downs, still an issue going back to last year. 3 of 14. That's not going to be good enough. And when you see what it does, when you're 3 of 14 on third downs and you've got so many 3-and-outs, that leads your defense to play 80-plus snaps. Now, an average NFL game, your offense should play 55 snaps, your defense should play 55 snaps. 80 snaps? That's 25 to 30 more than they should be on the field. And what happens is you physically wear out at the end of the game. In the fourth quarter, you're on fumes, and look what the Seahawks did.
But one thing that we did see that we didn't see all of last year was a touchdown drive by the Dolphins late in the game to either tie the game or take the lead. And what do we take away from that drive?
Ryan Tannehill has done that before. And even Adam Gase pointed out early in his career, Atlanta, he's done that against Denver when Denver. He can rally the team late in the fourth quarter and allow them to get the lead. Unfortunately, that was on the defense. The defense had 2 fourth down plays in that drive. Weren't able to get off the field. It has to get better from a defensive standpoint. I don't know how it's going to get better with all the injuries that they're battling right now. Earl Mitchell goes on IR. Mario Williams is battling a concussion. Jelani Jenkins is still fighting through that knee injury. It has to get better from a standpoint. Your defense has to be able to play with that same level of consistency that they had for 3 quarters, take it into the fourth, and be able to seal that game, especially when the offense gives you a lead.
Well, really, it was a 2-minute drill because they also gave up a field goal in the last 2 minutes of the first half.
Yeah.
What did you see that was different in defending against the Seahawks' offensive 2 minutes?
I think that Russell Wilson is one of the hardest quarterbacks to defend in 2 minutes because he can run and gain yards. He can produce big plays with his athleticism. And then Seahawks have a physical running game. I'm not going to judge them too harshly on those 2-minute drives, just be 2-minute drives that Seahawks had, because they're a very good team. And while there are no moral victories in the NFL, you should be proud of the way you played. You should be encouraged by what you've seen from a defensive standpoint. That defense looks pretty good with Mario Williams, with Kiko Alonso. Hopefully it continues to remain good. We saw encouraging things from Xavier Howard. You've got stuff to build on. The question is, how do you do it? And this week against the Patriots will be a good test.
We're going to get into that, of course, a lot going forward. But we need to talk about the other very large storyline that happened in the game was, of course, with 4 Dolphin starters took a knee during the national anthem. Arian Foster, Michael Thomas, Kenny Stills, Jelani Jenkins. What was their message, and do you think that fans are hearing it correctly?
I think that half a portion of the fan base, not just the fan base, half a portion of the nation is hearing it correctly, hearing that there are social injustice issues that are taking place in America that make certain segments of society feel like they're not welcome, they're not home, they're not at home, they're at risk. I know I personally feel that way. My life is different than others' lives just because of the challenges that I face by being a black African-American male. And I think that what they were bringing to light, the educational system. There are so many issues that impact this community. Now, there's another segment of society that feels like they're disrespecting America by not standing and having your hand at your heart during the Pledge of Allegiance, even though most of us don't stand and have our hand at our heart. We're just going through the motions. But especially on 9/11, they didn't feel like that was the right time. However, as Arian Foster says, when is the right time? Right. It's for those who oppose your message or oppose what you support, it's never the right time. And I'm proud of this generation of athletes, especially football players, because they are to remain anonymous. They are to remain silent. They're to wear their helmet and their number and go on the field, and when they're done with you, they'll cut you in 4 years and bring in the next batch of people who are faceless, people who lack personality and lack opinions. Athletes have served as spokesmen for the downtrodden and the people who don't have voices. These four athletes, they have a voice. They have an opportunity to address those issues. I just wish that they would have something that they would like to bring to light, bring to consciousness. Talk about the educational system and charter schools, how they're fraudulent. Talk about prison, the disproportionate amount of sentencing for the same crimes for African Americans versus others in society. Bring something to light that can help people create a little bit more awareness.
Obviously, with what we've seen with the outpouring of reaction from both sides on Twitter and all the messages that we get. The nation's very divided on whether or not this is the right thing for you to do.
Split 50-50.
It doesn't seem like locker rooms are.
No.
Do you feel like this is creating any sort of tension in not only the Dolphins locker room but across NFL locker rooms?
No, I don't think it is. And I think it's given power to NFL players where they feel like more players feel like they can raise their fist, or they can take a knee, or they can say that something is going on in America that makes me uncomfortable. And I think every time that they do that, and it shall continue throughout the season, it creates a dialogue and creates a little bit more awareness for people that, hey, not everything is right in America for some segments of society. And we need to start paying attention to this and looking out for them. And I think more people will eventually join.
Specifically on the Dolphins?
Specifically on the Dolphins, and I think throughout the NFL. There are more Dolphins than the four who stood up or sat down, kneeled down, that are in total support of this.
Right.
Just a lot of them don't feel comfortable enough in where they are as NFL players to take that stand.
Well, I think what we've seen certainly from Steve Ross coming out and saying that he's behind these players, and there's been no ill effects from an NFL side or from a business side against any of these. Colin Kaepernick's jersey's going, the jersey sales are going out of the, through the roof.
Yes, but there are negative effects. Brandon Marshall lost his endorsement. Michael Thomas doesn't have endorsements. John Jenkins doesn't have endorsements. Kenny Stills doesn't have endorsements. Arian Foster, I don't know if he has endorsements, but he's the guy who's taking the brunt of this. I mean, the one comment that I had, the segment of his interview where he was basically like, if you don't kneel, you're on your knees for your God. So are you saying that there's some level of disrespect for God if I'm on my knees for the national anthem? Right. And that's been retweeted 6,000 and something times. And every time somebody has their own opinions. Some of it's positive, some of it's negative. What happens is, people who believe that this should be white America, their viral toxicity it spews on these players. And that's primarily one of the issues. I don't really state my opinion, or I haven't written anything on it, or I haven't tweeted about it, just because I don't feel like dealing with the racism.
Yeah.
I don't feel like dealing with the negativity. I don't feel like being called the N-word repeatedly, because people who want this to remain the America that they know and love, they want you to be silent. And I think that that's what you have to fight against.
And I think we're finding out, too, a deeper conversation about what America is and what America stands for.
Oh, I think this election is going to clearly show us what America is and what it stands for.
All right. Well, we
Scary
went
times.
way longer than that than I thought that we were going to. We're going to get to some more questions. Actually, let's move on right now and take our first Twitter question. It comes from Josh Gray. Seemed like we played more aggressive on defense. Are we close to not being a finesse team and being a physical team?
You do not become a physical team overnight. It just does not happen. And while you might have 21 new players on this 53-man roster, they don't all just all of a sudden become macho tough guys. Tony Sparano built a physical tough team. He handed that to Joe Philbin. Joe Philbin built a finesse speed team. Now you hand that to Adam Gase. You cannot go back to just being a physical team overnight. It takes time, effort, drafting, free agency, resources in order to build a physical team. I like what I saw from the defensive standpoint, especially the front line. Jason Jones, Andre Branch, Mario Williams, all new players, brought a physicality to the game. That was encouraging. Jordan Phillips as well, a holdover, brought a physicality to the game that was encouraging. Offensively, you got to get there as well. You got to match that tone. There are not that many players on this team that are bringing that physical toughness, and it starts with the offensive line. They've got to get physically tougher. They've got to be able to command the line of scrimmage and own the trenches. When you can do that and you can run successfully when you want to, then you can say you're a physical team.
Is it going to be tough for them to really do that when Pouncey's not in there? He's their leader.
I thought Anthony Steen did a very good job. I saw him on the second level on a number of my reviews, number of running plays. I don't have a problem with Anthony Steen as a starting center. If you said he was Jamil Douglas or Billy Turner or a draft pick, I'd say, good job, draftee.
Right.
I don't care that he's not a drafted player.
Okay.
He played with that Alabama toughness, and I was quite encouraged.